Mic. Camera. Action.
Close chat.
Not really. I didn't give much of a shit about who I am.
He venido de tan lejos para esta pendejada.
Ni siquiera era necesario que viniera. Yo le pago para que deje a mis hombres pasar con la coca. No para que les robéis, los mate en la frontera.
¡Ey! Yo no robé. Estoy aquí porque el cirujano mató a mi madre. ¿Sabes?
¡Mentiroso! Usted sabía perfectamente bien que él hizo eso porque usted lo humilló. Mintiéndole a todo el mundo de que me arrestó a mí por putear.
Oyes, tú tienes suerte que yo te arresté. Cualquiera de mis hombres te podría haber violado. Por deporte nada más, hija de la chingada. I only told el cirujano that she was a whore because he challenged my arrest.
You dog.
All right. Welcome back to the Filmography, the show dedicated to watching every credited film from an actor's complete back catalogue, from past debut through to present day, in chronological order. Each episode, I'm joined by an esteemed guest to watch and discuss the next entry from the Focus Filmography and consider how it ranks amidst their career and whether we can trace any typecasting trends or topic traits or theatrical tics. Today's guest is El Gringo Grande, Max Byrne. And today's film is Brian Cox's Scorpion Spring from 1995. We unfortunately watch, you joyfully get to listen, and if you enjoy punishing yourself, you might watch along too. Max, my friend, thank you for truly taking one for the team.
Oh, gosh. I mean, you've really stitched me up here, Jack, I'll be honest with you. You lured me into a false sense of security with season 1 with the Stave and getting to journey through the Expendables franchise, stopping off for a little bit of Ghosts of Mars as well, which wasn't great. But compared to this one you've made me sit through, I think it makes Ghosts of Mars look like Dr. Zhivago, you know, this... not what you'd call a classic entry in the McConaughey oeuvre, is it?
It's not. And I do feel bad because I literally did call upon you. I was like getting my list together of the opening of the season 2, and I was like, oh, Max isn't in there. I really want Max to appear in the first sort of 10 and have a range of voices. And I always love talking to you, as you know. And I thought, oh, this will be a fun one to do with you. And it will be a fun one to do with you. It just wasn't a fun one for you and I to separately watch, unfortunately.
No, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I had literally never heard of this film before you sort of pulled it up. Blissfully unaware of its existence, as I think most people probably are. I don't know if this even got a theatrical release. It did not. I don't know. No, because I thought I couldn't find any box office numbers when I was having a look. So I think it's one of them that's kind of been swept under the carpet by probably all involved. But I mean, there's some good people in the cast. You know, this isn't. Although this is obviously McConaughey still in his early days of his career, he's only in it for, say, the last, would you say, 10-15 minutes of the film, something like that, if that. Although he does create quite the impression. But there's a very esteemed members of the cast in this film. It's not, it's not amateur hour. There's some great people in there. Director Brian Cox, I've not seen or heard anything else from his very limited filmography. At first I thought, is that, acclaimed Scottish acting titan Brian Cox, and I found it wasn't. I thought, oh well, is it acclaimed English astrophysicist Brian Cox? No, it isn't. It's someone else called Brian Cox, who I've literally never heard of. The third least famous Cox. And he is a bit of a cock for because he wrote and directed this film, Double Trouble. But yes, as I'm sure we'll get into, it's got its flaws, which are legion. But there's certain things I did quite like about it. So it wasn't all a total loss, shall we say?
Well, how generous of you. I mean, I'm not sure. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I think you touched upon it there. The idea that he's the writer and director. He's kind of that creator. We're in that era of the early 90s to mid 90s. This is mid, isn't it? But that period where I think there was that kind of renaissance of writer director films coming out. You know, your Kevin Smiths and all those kind of people, where these kind of indie films are being afforded the opportunity to have this kind of creative freedom. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah, what Coxey? I think something I read, he might have sadly passed away. But in 2018, I think I read. But yeah, it's not an extensive or, like you said, esteemed filmography. It's not one where you're going to rush to go and watch the rest. And in terms of this being unheard of, you're absolutely right. No figures for budget, no figures for box office. In fact, on Letterboxd, there's only 26. In fact, now because I've done one, 27 total reviews for this movie.
Wow.
Which
that's a low number.
Yeah, I know it's not the be all and end all of like working out how popular a film is, but I thought, oh, that's interesting. Let's have a look at what the previous McConaughey movies I've covered have got. So, like Cycling Backwards, Glory Days, which was my last episode, that's got 228 reviews, so still not very many. Boys on the Side has got 1.2k. Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, 9,100.
Yeah.
Angels in the Outfield, 1,900. My Boyfriend's Back, 1,100, and Dazed and Confused, 86,000. So, yeah, 27. Pretty small.
I bet there isn't another film with him in it that has got such a low level of interest. You know,
no,
it's crazy, really. I mean, I literally was just, I like to think of myself as reasonably into film, shall we say, and aware of actors' sort of back catalogues and that. But this is just literally one I never even heard. I suppose I wouldn't have even at the time if it didn't get a theatrical release. This is pre-internet days as well, 95, or pre-internet being a regular part of everyone's life, shall we say. So the awareness wasn't there and things like that. So yeah, it's just a real sleeper of a film that I literally don't know. And no one, I've mentioned it to people. Oh, I was watching this film the other day, Scorpion Spring, and they're all like, "What the hell is Scorpion Spring?" Like literally no one's heard of it. And you go, "Oh, it's got Matthew McConaughey in it. It's got Alfred Molina. These are well-known actors. And, one or two others who we'll get to," and they're like, "No, never heard of it." So yeah, it's a real sort of under the carpet one. But as far as I understand, McConaughey himself has never watched it back, has he, or something like that?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he saved himself the bother. Not only is the guy who's in it, and I'm covering this for this whole podcast for this next 2 to 3 years of my life. I'm covering his journey. He's not seen it, but you and I could barely see it either. We had to work really hard to find this, didn't we? We found one copy online, but that was all in Spanish. Put a pin in that. We'll come back to it. There was no English dialogue at all. So I tracked it down on eBay and bought a copy. But then we had that issue where, like, we don't live anywhere near each other. How are we going to watch this film in a reasonable amount of time that we, I like to watch it a day or two before. I think, you like to watch it fairly close to when you're recording as well, as from what I understand. We're normally sort of meshing each other, saying we're watching it now, aren't we?
Yeah.
So I reckon I must be in a really niche group. This is my claim to fame now. I haven't bought not one, but 2 copies of Scorpion Spring on DVD. Is there anybody else in the world that can claim that title?
I think you've probably got 80% of the world's market share as well, to be honest with you. You've got a real rare piece on your hands there. That's like having, the first ever appearance of Batman or something like this. Might not go for the same level of money at Sotheby's, but it's a piece of history, a piece of Americana, and it's all yours.
Well, obviously an early Christmas present to yourself. Please feel free to keep that DVD. Don't feel any pressure.
I was going to ask you for the mailing address to post it back to in the morning. But yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
There must be a charity shop somewhere near you.
There is, yes. I'm sure they'll take it.
Yeah, some other poor unsuspecting victim can browse through, see McConaughey, and think, "Oh, give that a go."
Yeah. I guess what you were saying as well about the copy online in Spanish, I did come across that myself as well. Actually, I did look, and via some thing I use to occasionally watch a film online. I did find it and thought, oh, here we go, fantastic. And yeah, the whole bloody thing in Spanish, which is kind of the flip side to the problem we've had watching this version, isn't it? In that, spoilers for people who haven't seen it. I guess not many people have, or not many people are going to. But there is, I would say, probably 25 to 30% of the dialogue in the film is in Spanish, because a lot of this takes place in Mexico, and there's a lot of, Mexican cast members, or Mexican characters at least. And there are no subtitles while they're talking, is there? So there's swathes of dialogue. It's not just like a little bit here and there for authenticity, and then they break into English. There's like whole swathes of Spanish dialogue, and I have not got a clue what they were talking about because I don't speak Spanish. How's your Spanish?
Terrible.
Yeah.
If I knew, I can't even. The joke there would have been if I could have given you "merde," which I know in French. But I can't even tell you a swear word in Spanish. It's so bad. But yeah, it's an odd thing, isn't it? Because then we were talking after watching. You'd obviously brought that to my attention because you watched it the day before me. Yeah, my DVD copy was the same. And then reading these 26 reviews, because, it didn't take me long. I read all of them. Yeah, even people who have managed to stream it in the States, there was a couple of people saying they streamed it on Hulu and Tubi, and it's the same. When they've watched it in streaming, there's been no subtitles for any of the Spanish dialogue. So clearly whoever has distributed this film just thought, can't be bothered. It's an expense I don't need because I'm not going to get anything back from this.
Yeah, fuck it. They're just going to have to learn Spanish, whoever watches this. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if the original release came. You would presume when it was originally released back in 95 that it came with subtitles. I don't know. But did it or didn't it? There must be a version out there with the subs on, because you've got to cater. It's an American film, so you cater to the English speaking market. So there's got to be something there. I'd love to see if there is a version with those intact. It might put the film in a whole new light.
It might. I mean, Jesus, it's got to be some special dialogue to really pull it out of the mire that it's in, isn't it? But yeah, a very odd choice. And I think, obviously, when I came to watch it, I was aware because you had told me. But even at the start, I was thinking like, oh, you could, if you're watching without the knowledge, you can think, oh, that's an interesting choice. Like, have this little moment. And I do like it in films when they do this sometimes, where if a character is not supposed to understand what's going on, they don't translate it. I think that could be a really interesting creative choice. So you're experiencing it in the same way the character is. But yeah, the longer this went on and the longer it goes on, and then, as you said, whole massive conversations between major characters just passing you by with no clue what they're saying. It's Asta, isn't it? When Asta and Nadia are together and arguing, and there's a mystery going between them. Are they brother and sister? Or are they not? And there's probably all this stuff that's going on between them throughout the movie that you and I just totally lost. Have no clue what's going on.
Yeah, it did. It definitely didn't enhance the viewing experience. It kind of ruined it. No, because I mean, if you don't speak the language of a film you're watching, then you need it to either be dubbed into English or you need English subtitles. If you don't happen to speak that language. So no, like you said, if it's just a bit here and a bit there, it doesn't matter at all. I've seen films where they've done that. And because it means nothing. It's incidental dialogue. It's asides and things like that. But this is, like you said, key conversations that go on for minutes at a time, including McConaughey himself at the end. Well, he breaks out the old Spanish as well. So I was lost. I'll be honest with you. I got to like the last sort of stage of the film, and I'm like, I'm really not sure what the stakes are here, and what they're about. Astor and Nadia, are we led to believe they're cooking up some plot to take poor Zach and Denny out, or are they on the good side? It really did sort of take me out of the film, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, I think it's totally fair. And I think if you're a good enough filmmaker, you probably, it still would have been an issue for you and me, but we probably still would have picked up enough through body language or performance or scenario situation. But yeah, because there's basically this mystery as well, it just meant things were things are so convoluted. Like the reason people do stuff makes no sense. And you find out right at the end. We should probably talk about the plot at some point, shouldn't we? We find out right at the end that he's basically using Nard as like a drug mule.
Yeah.
But by the time we get there, because we've had no stakes all the way through, you and I, for not knowing what's going on, it was just a bit of a shrug, really, from me.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I didn't know who to root for. You know, whether they, you know, Astor and Nadia deserved the fate that could potentially have befallen them. You know, whether you were like supposed to hope they ended up getting whacked or not. So yeah, it was a shame. It was a shame. I think if there was a copy out there with the full subtitles in, I would probably give it another chance, just to see, you know, if it made it better, and also to fill in several blanks as well that I have from watching the film. So yeah, hopefully there is a somewhere out there, if anyone knows, please let us know.
I guess the trouble is as well, I think you're being very generous. I'm going to be the bad guy today. I think I'm going to be El Rojo. The trouble is the English speaking characters are just so unlikable as well anyway. Like Denis, Alfred Molina's character, is vile, and Zach something McGraw, isn't it his name?
Patrick McGraw, yeah.
Patrick McGraw. He's just so bland and such a obvious kind of white savior cipher. This is the writer director. This is who he is, I'm guessing, in the movie. He's just so boring and bland as well, wearing the most douchiest of douchebag hats throughout the whole movie as well.
Could he be any more mid-90s if he tried?
Oh, it's true.
It looked like he was in Colour Me Bad or something like that. What a knob. But yeah, honestly, I'm so glad he got all his money stolen at the start, you know. Falling for the oldest trick in the book, the prostitute flashing her bits, tempting him down the side of the bus, and then he gets jumped by a gang. Yeah, he deserved it, in my opinion, for the hat.
For that alone. And also, actually, I don't know if you picked up on this, but when he's talking to Denis and explaining his story, he says, like, oh, she was so beautiful. I think she was about 16. And I was like, whoa, what? Sorry, hang on. Rewind and check that. Did he actually just say that? Yeah, that was a line of dialogue in this movie. He was up for a 16-year-old prostitute. And this is the guy we're supposed to root for. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he's supposed to be getting home to the crux of the journey, the road trip they go on. Is he's trying to get back to LA or wherever it is to reconcile with his girlfriend, isn't he? That's the whole plot point for him. That's his journey. That's why he's going there. But yet he was willing to go with the teenage prostitute while he was in Mexico. I mean, was it, you know, what happens in Mexico stays in Mexico? I don't know. But, you know, like you said, he's the good guy because Denny is so unlikable. But, you know, I'll just forget. Although I want to get home to my girlfriend, I'll go with this, you know, literal teenage girl behind the back, you know, just because I can. So yeah, what a twat. Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost as if like, well, I've learnt my lesson now, and now I'm the good guy, isn't it? Because then when he meets Denis in a bar, he's having a very odd conversation as well with a woman I think he's having an affair with, but his partner's pregnant or something, and so she storms out, and this is how Denis and Zach end up on this road trip together. But when him and Denis get talking, and all the kind of, I mean, what's the best way to describe it? Misogynistic for sure. Yeah. Racist at times, things he says. Certainly perverted in how he talks about women and sex. And he is not a likable co-protagonist, really. It's sort of, as you said, it's almost like a buddy road trip movie. I don't know if he's supposed to be funny. Can you explain, Denis? I can't. There's a lot that I can't explain really. Alfred Molina is a fine actor. Okay, he's had a very very long career, very distinguished. Lots of good performances in lots of films, big budget, huge films. You know, reprised his role as Dr. Octopus a couple of years ago. You know, it doesn't get much bigger than that. You know, we remember him from Raiders of the Lost Ark 40 years ago. You know, you throw me the idol, I throw you the whip, and all that. You know, but great actor, great British actor. Yet here, I don't know what he was thinking because his accent is pure hello. You know, he's, for those who maybe aren't familiar, there was a sitcom in Britain in the UK called Hello, which was huge. It was like an enormously successful sitcom set in Nazi-occupied France, which doesn't sound very funny, but
different times. But the characters were all played by Brits and put on these really exaggerated French accents and really sort of OTT. But he seems like he was auditioning for Hello 10 years after it finished airing here. It really is something to behold. But yeah, his character is just an awful person, isn't he? He's all he wants to do is get laid. He just talks about women and what he wants to do to them. He does this really awful speech when they're in the car where he says, like, you can break life down and it's really only about two things: the pink and the green. Green referring to dollar bills and pink referring to women's genitalia, for want of a better word. But the worst thing is when he's doing that speech about the pink and the green, he's doing these actions. So when he says the green, he's rubbing his fingers like one does to simplify money. And then when he talks about the pink, he kind of closes his eyes and sniffs his fingers. But like every time he says it, though, not just once, where he's like, yeah, the green and the pink or whatever. But he says the pink about 3 or 4 times, and every time he does, he goes back to that. Like, it's like, oh god, was that like a note from the director, or did like Alfred Molina just kind of throw it in himself? Because it is for someone who's like a very esteemed, trained actor who's done classical work as well. This is probably the broadest of broad performances you could ever hope to wish. It's like something out of a pantomime, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was just trying to look at his IMDb as we were talking. I don't know if it was hard times, just why he took this, but yeah, early to mid 90s. There's not a lot going on for him, really. Lots of what looks like really bad TV movies. White Fang 2. I mean, wow.
Jesus, didn't know there was such a thing.
He's got a small role in Maverick, the Mel Gibson and Danny Glover like Western. Yeah, and then this really, and Species in the same year.
Yes, yeah, and he was in Boogie Nights a year or so after, wasn't
exactly, yeah. So then suddenly things start picking up again. But clearly, this was a spell where it was, I've got to take whatever is offered to me to pay my bills.
Oh, I don't blame him for that. Beggars can't be choosers. A man's got to work. We got to earn a living. But Jesus Christ, I mean, his performance in this, it's just so like, I don't know. It's like is he like, I'm doing it on purpose? Is he trying to be like really obtuse with his performance and like deliberately trying to do it like that, or is he trying to? Does he genuinely think, this is how a Frenchman speaks? It was just all he needed was a beret and a stripy jumper just to sort of complete the look, and a baguette in his hand for that real French stereotype. But yeah, I mean, as awful as he is, and as despicable as his character is, I actually found his performance to be the highlight of the film. Granted, a low bar, but just it was entertaining, wasn't he? We can say that for him.
Yeah, at least he had a personality. Zach has none, and then Astor might have had a lot of personality, but who knows what he was saying most of the time. And he's gone on to be a really big actor, hasn't he? S.I. Morales. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right, but I mean, he was in the last Mission Impossible movie.
He was the main villain, yeah, and he'll be back for the next one as well. Yeah.
So he's not somebody to be sniffed at. He's not just some random guy they got for this role. He's got on to be a very successful actor. Your guy Ruben Blades, isn't it, from Predator 2 and.
Yeah, Danny Boy from Predator 2. Want some candy?
But as you said at the top, there's quite a few people in this, and.
Yeah, Kevin Teague, who plays a really racist sheriff as well.
Yes,
he's great in Roadhouse, Patrick Swayze's Roadhouse. He's the guy that owns is it the Double Juice? I can't remember what it's called now. But the club, the bar that he works at, he owns that. He's the guy who recruits Swayze to come and work as the bouncer at the club. There's some decent people there. I even spotted a cameo from the guy who is in From Dusk Till Dawn. He's the singer, the band. Yes.
Yeah.
He's a singer in the band that are playing in the Titty Twister. When Salma Hayek's doing the striptease, and then obviously, before all hell breaks loose and the guitar suddenly turns like human bodies or something like that. But yeah, he's in it as a barman. He has little cameos. There's loads of people in it who are who are somebody. Yeah, it's not like a cast of nobody. They're all decent people. Yeah. Obviously, including McConaughey.
Yeah, and I think Yeah, they're all pretty broad, aren't they? Like you said, Kevin Tiger? I'm not sure how you say his name, but like he kind of gives it as all full on like white racist cop too, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Reuben Blades is probably a little bit underplayed in a good way. I mean that, like, he's playing a character rather than a caricature, I think. But yeah, everyone else is just, the level of acting is pretty uniformly awful. So I can see why you'd say, perhaps despite it being the lowest of low bars, like no Olympic medals for getting over this one, Molina. But yeah, maybe just because his character is so outlandish, he's kind of I hesitate to use the word appeal, but he's kind of the main draw, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, at least you want to watch his performance just because it's so out there and so terrible / absurd.
Like what awful thing is he going to say next? Or
exactly. At least there's some value in that. Whereas, like you said, Patrick McGaw has zero screen presence. I mean, I didn't bother looking up his backstory, his back catalogue, and to see what else he might have been in prior to this or after this. But I don't know if there's anything of note. I didn't recognize him. You know,
me neither. No, other than, as you said, he's that classic mid-90s looking kind of guy, isn't he?
Oh, awful. The kind of guy you just want to punch in the face, to be honest with you. And I'm so glad he got shot at the end, but sadly only shot in the leg. You know, I wish it had just been a bit higher, you know, between his eyes or something like that. I think would have sufficed. But yeah, they were hoping, I guess Brian Cox, when he's put this, he's hoping that these two are going to have this on-screen chemistry, this double act, making it this road movie, this buddy road movie, like, I don't know, like Midnight Run or something like that, or things of that. Obviously, I don't mean plot-wise, but, you know, having a two-hander on the road, coming across these various colourful characters on the way. But no, it just doesn't work. I think Molina certainly holds up his end of the bargain, and not in the best of ways, as we've said. But yeah, McGaw just brings nothing to the party whatsoever. I just don't think he's good, basically.
No, he's not. He's terrible. And, you know, as you said, looking at his back catalogue, he's not one to put on my list. He's got 12 appearances total between films and TV. So clearly, you know, everyone else thought he wasn't very good as well, and he decided to retire and take his career in a different path.
Yeah. Probably asking people if they want fries with that as we speak.
Sure.
But you know, it's a shame for him. But you know, you reap what you sow. But he's not good. He's not good. But again, like you were saying about some of the other people in this, S.A. Morales, you know, really good. As well as Mission Impossible, I really enjoyed him. He played Deathstroke in Titans, the DC TV show. He played Deathstroke, I think it was season 2 or 3. He was like the main villain of that season, played it all the way through. And he was fantastic as Slade Wilson. Really, really good actor. But yeah, again, here, we don't know what he's saying because we don't speak Spanish. And again, Reuben Blades the same, or Blades, however you pronounce it. I've heard it pronounced Blades as well. But Blades just sounds badass, doesn't it?
Much, yeah.
Yeah.
Much better.
It does. Again, you know, as Predator 2, he was one of the main guys in Fear the Walking Dead as well. You know, he's had a good career as well. I think he does music as well, puts like albums out as well, in a, you know, that kind of, I don't know, Latin style or something like that. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with their performances, but I think they're just let down by, like I keep saying it, you know, repeat myself, but we don't know what they're saying, and just the way the film's shot as well. It looks so 90s, doesn't it? It has that sort of, I can't describe it, but it's got that kind of 90s hue to it. I don't know how to articulate it, but do you know what I mean?
No, I do.
It looks so mid-90s, doesn't it?
It has it almost kind of like, grainy isn't right either, but it has that kind of like lo-fi indie graininess to it. And there's certain angles which are being used around this time, which I think people thought were innovative, but were just actually crap and not right for what you're trying to do. That one bit that particularly stands out is when Reuben Blades is a border patrolman and Kevin Tighe's sheriff, I think he is.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
they have the argument outside, like the kind of trailer, which is supposed to stand as to the police station, their border station. All the locations as well are so like clearly within a a 10-block radius in this movie. It's whatever they could get in this radius. Like that shack will do, that trailer will do that. They have like an argument outside the trailer about whose jurisdiction it is and who's going to go and bring them in, and the angles that are being used there are just so like 90s try hard. It's exactly that kind of thing that you're talking about.
Yeah, again, I think that just kind of dates it as well. It dates the film. It date stamps it for this period. It hasn't, it doesn't age well, does it, at all?
No, and I think the reason why this film is so bad is not just the lack of subtitles, not just that a lot of the actors aren't very good. It's the confluence of everything. I know that's kind of obvious to say, but sometimes one thing can save it. Kind of like if this was brilliantly directed, you would kind of forgive some of the other things, or if it had a really interesting, intricate plot, you might forgive some of these things. But yeah, the plot is very A to B, but yet also strangely convoluted. The direction is very amateurish and dated. The performances are terrible. We can't tell what they're saying half the time. Yeah, it's only a 90-minute max. It's probably an 85-minute runtime, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it felt it.
It did. I'll be honest. I mean, when I was sat watching it the other night, I was texting you going, "Oh, I finally started watching it about half an hour in." And yeah, like you said, the sign of you're not enjoying something is when you can't stop reaching for your phone during it. That's always a bad sign. And I was on my phone more than I was watching the film, I think. But yeah, it's just I mean, there's, again, talking about good people being involved, the guy doing the music for this is, I don't know you pronounce his first name, it's Laylo or Lalo Schifrin. This is the guy who did Enter the Dragon. This is the guy who did Bullet. Iconic pieces of theme music that are just recognizable and fantastic. Yet he's doing this, and the score is just sort of lazy flamenco guitar, kind of just dotted throughout it, going, "Hey everyone, we're in Mexico. In case you didn't know, we're gonna give you some Spanish guitar here." But I mean, granted, this is 20 years on from the films I just mentioned. But after this, he goes on to score the Rush Hour trilogy, which, love or hate those films, huge Hollywood blockbusters, So it wasn't like he was on the bones of his arse here. But it's just such a, for someone who's got such an impressive body of work, when you look, there's other stuff in his can as well that I haven't mentioned. Really good stuff that he's done, but just here he's just been dragged down by. Did he see the film that was presented to him and gone?
Yeah, maybe that was it.
Fuck me, does not deserve me to sweat over a score for it. Where's my guitar? And then just lazily sort of knock out a few flamenco chords and go, "There you go, Coxie." Cut.
It almost feels like it's like. I know, as we said, like pre-internet, but it feels like it's finding stock music, like a what's it, like copyright-free music. What can I find? That'll do. Stick that in. Yeah, but that's kind of symptomatic of the whole movie, I think. Really. Yeah.
It's just how can someone with such a great talent produce such shit? I don't know, but like you said, I think it's just sort of, it encapsulates the whole thing,
what it could have been with the promise of having Schifrin as the composer, and what you actually get, what it could have been as an early role for McConaughey, what it could have been as like a starring vehicle for Alfred Molina, what you get.
It is. It's a shame. I mean, it would have been great if McConaughey had a much bigger part, because we've said, "Oh, this person's shit in it, that person's shit in it, blah blah blah. This is shit, that is shit." But and I know this is kind of a biased podcast because he's your boy for this season, but his performance is excellent. He is excellent in the 10 or 12 minutes that he's on screen. Right at the end of the film, he is the best thing in it by a country mile, a country universe. I mean, you can't even compare. I mean, he's only mid-20s here, isn't he? He's very young here at the time. He looks older though. I don't think he's one of them actors who always looks old. I looked up and he's about 26 here, 25, 26. But he looks a decade
He does. It's
older
interesting, isn't it?
He looks mid-30s. I suppose he's always looked a bit older than he is. Apart from now, where they get to those age Hollywood actors, don't they, where they hit 50 and then they start to look 40 when they're 50, and
doesn't seem very fair, does it? Yeah.
No, it doesn't. I'm 45 and I'm look probably about 50, but there you go. But he is really, really good in it. I'm not just saying that because this is the theme of the show, but his performance massively elevates the film. That scene is full of everything that's lacking throughout the rest of the film. It's full of intensity. It's full of tension. It's full of good acting as well. And he literally steals the show. You could see why it's only another couple of years until he starts getting those starring roles from here, isn't it? Looking at his filmography, A Time to Kill is a year or two after this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where he really then he's off to the races. But you can see, can't you? What a screen presence, even at such a relatively young age.
Yeah, agreed. And he's like the big bad, isn't he? He's where this has been building up to. As we said, it turns out that Nard is being used as a drug mule, that her family are being kept, aren't they, in order to make her do it, because she owes them a debt, I think, from them being illegally brought across the border. There's all this whole convoluted plot, which you can just about sort of get without the Spanish subtitles. And it ends in this abandoned house, doesn't it? And one of the characters from earlier on comes back. Can't think what his name is, but he's like another kind of recognizable face. I recognize him from being in Tremors.
Oh, he's been in all sorts, hasn't he? Yeah.
He's one of those like, that guy. There's that guy from that thing. But Arturo, he had been in the scene earlier.
Yeah.
When his mate got killed, he got stabbed in the neck when Asta stabbed him in the neck. So he comes back. He's sort of El Rojo's right-hand man, isn't he? Despite looking like he's sort of portly and 50 and on the verge of retirement of being like an orchard owner or something, rather than some sort of gangster's right-hand man. But and there's a, for want of a better phrase, Mexican standoff, isn't there? Involving Asta and Zach and El Rojo and this other character, Arturo.
Denny can. It's weird because Denny he's like outside the building, is he? And then he kind of crawls in through the window in front of everyone, and then just stands next to Zach. I didn't quite understand why he didn't just. I mean, I know he's handcuffed, but he can still walk. Like, I never quite understood why he decides to kind of like flop through the window and jump and get in there with the rest of them when he could have just run off,
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless he thought there was some women in there or something like that, probably.
Well, him.
It's a really weird bit of direction. But that aside, I think it's a really good scene that you don't know, because again, we haven't got a clue who's who, what they've been saying throughout the films. We don't know, do we? So you get to that last scene, you've got no idea how it's going to play out, who's going to live, who's going to die. And McConaughey, he looks completely wired during that scene as well. Whether his character's supposed to have been getting high on his own stash or whatever, I don't know. But he looks really like out of control, doesn't he?
It's interesting. I don't know if you've ever seen the Texas Chainsaw sequel that he's in.
I have, yes, I have. I love it, yeah.
It's very much, he's in that mold, isn't he? He's playing that kind of, much more controlled here, but he's playing that like psychotic. There's an edge to his voice, which you don't really get much from McConaughey in most of his other performances, but there's an edge to his voice that does sound threatening, sounds scary. That, a couple of the lines that he says are quite hard. I mean, he says, he's holding Nadia at one point, isn't he? And he says, "I'll cut this bitch open from cunt to Adam's apple." And I was like, whoa, McConaughey, we're not going to get that in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Maybe we should.
Yeah, maybe. It was pretty full on. I was quite, whoa, Matthew, out of your mouth. So yeah, he's happy to go for it when he's given the opportunity, isn't he?
Yeah. Oh, he's really good. He steals the show. But and he conveys like pure menace as well, doesn't he? If you look at his whole catalogue, he hasn't played a lot of villains. It's some. Obviously, like the one you just mentioned, Texas Chainsaw sequel. But I'm struggling to think of any others where he's... the Dark Tower, I suppose, as well, isn't he?
I've not seen that, but yeah.
He's the main baddie in that. That's oh, you're in for a treat when you get to that film. Let me tell you, not in the best of ways, but you're in for a treat. But yeah, I don't know why he's not done more of it though, based on this, because although he's like, he's an incredibly charming screen presence, isn't he? He's a good-looking man. He's very charismatic. He's very good as someone you want to root for on screen. But as you see in this performance, he's really good at playing a low-life piece of shit as well. He is an awful person in this, but you really want to watch him. And that's what makes a good villain, doesn't it? And I think, a good movie villain should be someone who is deplorable, but there's always something about them where you're like, oh, I want to watch this guy or this girl, that person. I want to see more of them. That's what makes a good villain, and that's what he gets in this 10 minutes. I mean, he really puts it all on the screen as well, doesn't he? He really, he must have thought, well, I'm probably not getting much money for this role. I don't know what he was paid on. Anyone was paid. It's a very small part, but it's a part in a film. So he just goes for it, doesn't he? It's a really, really strong performance, I think.
Yeah, it is. I agree. And it's obviously there's a famous story which you've gladly agreed to be indulged with that I'll read out from Green Lights as we get towards the end of the recording, which, let's be honest, probably isn't too far away at this point. But as we're already at the end of the film, considering, I think everything you said is definitely true. And I think what that tells me about him, even at this early stage of his career, is how good he can be, how he can bring that level of intensity. And it's clearly just a natural talent for him, considering, as we'll read, how little prep he put into this role. But he still has that, able to, as you said, have that screen presence, have that charm. That's just coming from him. That's not coming from, that's not Heath Ledger prep for playing the Joker in The Dark Knight. That's just like McConaughey on screen, like just turning up, and that he is a charming person. He can be a menacing person if he wants to be. And I think it shows his knack for being an actor that perhaps wasn't made the most of for quite a long time in his career.
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I didn't probably start to being interested in McConaughey and his films till about 2011-ish, when he did The Lincoln Lawyer, and there was another one out that year called Killer Joe, which I went to see at the cinema, which I really liked. Well, he's kind of a villain in that one as well, actually. Killer Joe, villain adjacent,
anti-hero kind of,
yeah. He's not
a good better term.
Yeah, he's not a good person in that film, but he's not the out-and-out villain. There's worse people in that film than him. But yeah, I think from there, if you look at the chart of his career, he tends, from that point on, the roles are a bit meatier, aren't we? He'd sort of been typecast in some ways as like the rom-com guy, hadn't he? And he'd done a lot of those films, and who can blame him? I'm sure he was paid wonderfully well, and those
get in the green, get in some pink.
Exactly. That's what, as Denny says, that's what life is all about.
That's what it's all about.
You need nothing more in life other than green and pink. So he was probably getting plenty of both in those days. But yeah, I mean, he'd done other stuff, hadn't he? Like before that wasn't rom-coms. Stuff like Reign of Fire, which is great fun, and that, but it's not the most meat. That's a big, almost pantomime performance he puts on in that film, isn't it? And things like that, Sahara and things of that nature. But then, I think I hate to use the term, but he showed that he could really act from sort of later onwards. And, obviously it culminates with him in an Oscar as well, of course, and richly deserved as well for the film he did win for. Brilliant. But yeah, it's a testament to his talent, really. I think, and his versatility as an actor. I think it would have been. I think it was easy to write him off in the early days because he was kind of dismissed as a pretty boy, wasn't he? Who looked good on camera, handsome guy, charismatic, sticking with a pretty girl as the leading lady, and we'll make it into a rom-com, and everyone enjoys it. Blah blah blah. And it probably didn't stretch his talents to where they were capable of going. So, but I think here is, despite the fact we spent 40 minutes lambasting the film, I think there is, there's signs here, isn't there, of what he's capable of doing with the right material. Yeah,
definitely. And, he talks about this a lot, about that stage in his career and how he decided he had to just say no. And then once he started saying no, and he waited them out. And another famous story is about, I think it's about a couple of years, and he won't reveal what the film is, but they got up to like 16 million or something. They were offering him to be in this rom-com, and he was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And he says that's suddenly turned people's heads. Oh, okay, this guy seriously does really want dramatic roles. And then, as you said, suddenly Lincoln Lawyer, Killer Joe, Mud, True Detective. Then suddenly he's on this run, which you're like, oh my God, like, where has this McConaughey been?
Yeah.
So we'll keep delving into that kind of side of his career, and he's really frank about talking about it, which is what's really nice and refreshing. And is that I don't really think of him as a celebrity because I don't really know anything about him and his life and his wife and his kids, and he keeps all of that private. But he's a very honest and open person about who he is and his place in the world, and he's quite a spiritual person, isn't he? And, there's the famous bongos and all that kind of stuff. He's quite open about talking about all that, which I think is quite refreshing.
Yeah, I think he does seem to be someone who's not like massively affected by his level of fame and success and wealth and celebrity and everything that goes with that. He doesn't seem to be someone who, like you said, other than the naked bongos, when he's probably been smoking some very unusual things in those days, but he doesn't seem to be someone who covets the other side of celebrity, does he? That comes hand in hand with being a movie star. You don't. I mean, obviously he's a married man with children. That's so those days, and he's 50 something years old now. So those days are long gone. But even when he was younger, and the hot property, there was never the celebrity gossip column inches about him, was there? And him being seen at this nightclub or that nightclub, which a lot of young actors play that game, don't they? Because they kind of, I don't know whether they think it's advantageous to the career or it's just the trappings of it. I don't know. But he always seems to be someone who's more about the craft and the other things that come with it kind of are a byproduct of doing well as an actor, as opposed to doing well as an actor because you want those things, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, obviously just ironic that we're having this conversation about craft and acting, and whilst also talking about Scorpion Spring.
Yeah, I know. But like we've said, he's
the highlight.
By far the highlight of this film.
Yeah.
He is. He's genuinely very, very good in it. I would have liked his character to have been in it all the way through. Then the film would have been 1,000% more watchable than it is, just for his performance alone. If it had been like one of those, like a pursuit movie where he's after them, not like the Terminator, but that kind of vibe where you're being pursued cross country.
Like No Country for Old Men or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, where he's just after them rather than them coming to a destination to meet up with him, whether they've absconded with his drugs or his money or whatever, and he's after them or something like that. That would have been quite an interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
It would have been, might have been a better plot, but it would have been a better, more watchable film just because we got more of him in it. That I would have liked to have seen. Yeah,
or even maybe if Zach had picked him up instead of Denis. And he'd had Zach at gunpoint, or I don't know. I agree with you. There's ways to have made this more interesting. And what's really interesting. What terrible use of English language. But thinking about where he started in Dazed and Confused, and how much of an impact and what a classic movie that is, and what a strong performance it is from him, and how that film was full of improvisation, but not just by him, by Linklater. He saw the value of McConaughey and thought, I've got to get this guy in my movie more.
Yeah.
If only we had that here. If only Coxey had seen the value and thought, oh, this guy's good on screen. I've got to create more scenes for him. I've got to get him in the movie earlier. You're right. It would have changed the dynamic of the film completely.
It would have. I mean, I don't know if this was filmed at the end of the shoot or what, and it was just like you come in. I mean, it must have only been on set for a day or two for the amount of screen time and the amount of money they probably had to play with. He must have been in and out. But yeah, I know what you mean, though. A blind man could see that he's a level above everyone else in this film, and they really should have utilized that more and thought on the feet and just given him a few more scenes. Whatever that could have been. It could have been flashback scenes to show how they were in that situation with him or something like that, or even him on the other end of a phone or something like that. Them having to ring and say, oh, we'll be there. We've found some transportation. We'll be there in a day or two or something like that. And he'd be like, oh yeah, you better fucking have B, and you better have what I'm, have my stuff, etc. Even that, but I guess they missed a trick.
They did. Shall we hear what it was like for him, the experience of making Scorpion Spring?
I'd be certainly intrigued to know where it sort of sits in his memory banks and what he thought of it. Yeah.
All right. So, like I said, thank you. You've agreed. It's a bit of a longer passage than I would normally read, but I think there's quite a lot of interesting information in here.
Yeah.
So he starts, I received a blind offer for a minor role in a small independent film called Scorpion Spring. I'd only be in one scene. They offered me 10 grand and I took it. No audition, shooting in 2 weeks. That's all I knew. So he filmed this a little bit after he filmed Boys on the Side.
Right.
So
okay.
actually, he's been acting for about 4 years at this point. 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah.
I decided that was all I wanted to know. I got the script and I didn't read one page of it. Not a word. Not even of the scene I was in. Why? Because I had a bright idea. To lubricate my creative juices and rid myself of all the theoretical tension I've been carrying since that last movie, I decided I was going to go back to how I acted when I first started, when I played this guy named David Woodison. When reading just one line of the script completely unlocked the character for me. It was easy for me to improvise in all those other unscripted scenes in Dazed and Confused because I was confident I knew who my man was, comfortable to just say and do what Woodison would in any scene the director put me in. Back when I was all instinct and natural. In Scorpion Spring, my man was an American drug runner in South Texas who meets up with the Mexican coyotes smuggling his dope back into the States, who then reneges on the deal, doesn't pay for the smuggled drugs, and instead kills the smugglers and takes the cocaine for free. That's all I needed to know. Just be that guy. Handle the situation like he would. Improvise, do what my man would do. Easy. 2 weeks later, I'm on location in my trailer. I know my man. I've created my backstory of an upper mid-level drug runner who works for the cartel on the American side in Texas. I need the cocaine and the money, and I'm carrying a loaded pistol, willing to get out alive with both. I even look the part, unshaven. Page turn. Greasy hair, black boots, leather jacket. Who needs a script? I know who I am. Press record. I got this. Just before we take out our marks, a production assistant comes up to me. Some size, Mr. McConaughey. I take them and just shove them in my pocket without looking at them. All the actors settle onto their marks and prepare for action. Here we go. Well, I guess I lost my nerve a little bit because I decided it would be a good idea right at this moment, just before we roll the camera, to have a quick peek at the scene and the dialogue. I unfold the size and have a look. 1 page, 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages of a monologue in Spanish. Holy shit. What am I going to do? I look up to no one in particular and aloud to the set I say, can I get 12 minutes, please? I take a little walk with the sides. I then return to set, put the sides back in my pocket and step to my mark. The director says action and we shoot the scene. I have never watched Scorpion Spring. I did learn a good lesson that day. We have to prepare to have freedom. We have to do the work to then do the job. We have to prepare for the job so we can be free to do the work. Knowing my man does not mean I know Spanish.
Jesus Christ. That's bonkers though. So he literally thought, I'm not going to even know the lines and just step on set and film it. And how, it's one thing to go, yeah, I know the character. I know I'm going to put myself in his mindset. I know how he'd act. Great stuff. But then surely you've got to know the lines to do the scene with your fellow actors and give the director what he wants. That's just a bonkers approach to it. I love it though. I love it.
Yeah. So goodness knows what we got. As we said, the highlight of the movie, how close that is to what was originally intended, but still. And you said there is a segment, it's probably about 10 seconds, 20 seconds, when he is talking in what sounds like Spanish, whether it is or not, I don't know. But yeah, there is a section, isn't there, when he does have this long kind of monologue. He's walking around the room circling them, isn't he? He does a little bit of it in Spanish too.
Yeah, you wouldn't know that any of that was going on in the background.
No.
Because like we've just said, his performance is great, and his delivery of the Spanish section as well is pretty seamless as well. Unless he's just talking gibberish, I've no idea. But yeah, God, you wouldn't think any of that was the case. But I love it though. I absolutely love that. I would love to have known what the rest of them thought, but then did he just get away with it because he asked for those 12 minutes, and then somehow in 12 minutes he memorized 4 pages worth of dialogue, of which his character literally says pretty much everything as well, and just was able to just go on and deliver it, or deliver like an approximation of it, and the director was like, yeah, I can work with that. It's not quite what I wrote down, but I can work with it, because some writer directors are very precious about their dialogue, and you'll say it how I wrote it, kind of thing. Like Tarantino's quite supposedly very much into that. Like he doesn't like improvisation. Like I've written it how I want it spoken, so say it. Yeah, that's very. I would love to have been a fly on the on the wall for that whole situation. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Love it.
So what you're saying is, when McConaughey listens back to this, which obviously he will, he should then go and watch Scorpion Spring. His scene, anyway.
He should.
Maybe it's not the rest of it, just his scene.
Yeah. He could. It's on YouTube. Just his scene.
Is it okay? I was going to say you can send him your copy of the DVD.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah. Send us your postal address, Matthew. I'll send it on for you. But yeah, it's on there, and if anyone wants to, fans of McConaughey who want to check out his performance in perhaps a film they've never seen him in, and don't really want to sit through the film, you can watch just his scene is on YouTube by itself. Because I was looking on YouTube initially, a lot of films are available for free on YouTube, aren't they? So I wonder if it might be one of those, but which it isn't. But that scene is. So if you watch that in isolation and not bother with the previous 75 minutes of the film, you're in for a good time, because it's like we've just said, it's a really, really well executed, well acted scene. I love it.
Speaking of sitting through the film, when I don't know how quickly you turn your DVD off, but when I had it on, I was just let the credits was rolling in the background as I started scrolling through Letterboxd and deciding if there was any reviews that I could possibly read out. There's one. The DVD got right into the credits, and before I'd realised, because I was reading the reviews, like I said, it started playing itself again. And I was like, whoa, no way, thank you very much. Where's the stop button? Reach for it quick. What kind of lunatic is letting Scorpion Spring finish and then start all over again straight away?
Some sick bastard.
Well, Denis.
Yeah, probably, yeah. It's probably, you hear these horror stories about methods of interrogation used at like Guantanamo Bay and things like that, where they pipe in the most extreme like death metal into the cells, don't they, to sort of break the prisoners. I would say just give them a gala screening of this. This'll break them.
Like Shawshank Redemption, when they all get the big screening, you're going to find them all trying to tunnel their way out of Guantanamo Bay after being forced to watch Scorpion Spring again.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. You don't need any Jack Bauer torture techniques when you're trying to get the bomb codes out of a terror suspect. Just stick this on and go, I'll make you watch the whole thing. Unless you tell me what the password is, they'll soon give it up.
They will. Somebody that agrees with you, I've just got the one that I'll share. Quinn Farber on Letterboxd says this was intensely unwatchable from the very beginning. I only put this on because Matthew McConaughey mentions in his memoir Green Lights that he showed up on set not reading the script because he'd only one scene and he wanted to try to improvise and to find out his character spoke Spanish. He learned a lesson in preparation and has never watched this movie. I should have taken his advice. You're better off looking up his scenes because he only shows up in the last 10 minutes. So there you go. He completely agrees with us.
Whoever that person is, very astute, very, very, very astute, and very accurate. They've basically just summed up what we've spent the last hour saying in that little paragraph of a review there, because I think everything they say is completely fair.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Oh, so well, shockingly, I'm going to guess this probably isn't a classic for you.
Your powers of perception do you credit. Yeah. No. I think I would be hard. I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone who's like, I really like that film. I'm really into that film. I'm a fan of it. But no, it's not a great film by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't expect it to be a classic, but when before I put it on, when I looked at the people in it, you're thinking, there's some people liking there, some good actors. It could be one of those hidden gems, that these films you've never heard of but turn out to be really good. But no, it wasn't. It just no, it's not a good film. It's not well made. It's not well written. Some of the performances are woeful. Some of the performances are so enormous and scenery chewing, but not necessarily in the best of ways. And it's just not very well put together at all. Obviously, the subtitle issue just compounds the misery. But like we've said, I think your boy McConaughey really does deliver something good, and it's just sets in motion, I think, where you can say, this guy's got a future, shall we say? This kid could have something, and he does. He blows everyone else off screen. He really does. And the fact that you shared with us that excerpt where he literally turned up with not knowing what he was going to do or anything, even makes it even better. I love that. It's like sheer chaos of his performance. But yeah, it's not a great film, but he is great in it. I'll say that.
I love that. So even though he's great in it, we're saying completist only. You really don't need to watch this movie, I'm assuming.
Oh no. I think you'd watch it, like you said, if you're a completist, if you're like a Matthew McConaughey super fan and you just want to watch everything he's been in, then sure, you would watch it for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not a film that I think anyone would seek out or want to make an effort to watch. And like you said, it didn't even get a proper theatrical. I presume it must have just gone straight to video in the States. Whether it did even get to video here, I had no idea. But yeah, it's not one you should really invest 90 minutes of your precious time in. We only get one life.
No, sorry about that, Max.
Yeah. No. I mean, I was able to scroll through Facebook at the same time, so it wasn't a completely wasted evening. But yeah, no, it was not great, shall we say?
No, and his early run has not been great. So this is film number 7, and that is now the 5th completist only entry I've got. So we've got the one classic, one worth catching, and the rest, by all my guests, have been deemed completist only. So the only way is up, right?
As Yaz once said, the only way is up. I'm guessing those two you mentioned were Dazed and Confused and Texas Chainsaw.
Correct. Yes.
Wow. Not even Charles Xavier would
absolutely
would, need his psychic powers to guess that. Yeah. But yeah, you can tell by looking at it. But like we said, everyone's got to start somewhere. You can't just expect to walk into Hollywood and be thrown in quality material. I mean, I guess some people do. When you look at some actors, it kind of just ground zero is good films. Season 1 of this show is a testament to that, isn't it? I guess you need a bit of luck, but then I guess some people have to sort of plug away for a few years, before you get that big break. It's all about acting's that kind of profession, isn't it? It doesn't matter how good you are, how much talent you've got. It's about right place, right time, your face fitting for what a particular casting director's looking for. And then once that happens, the sky's the limit for you, I guess. But it's just getting that slice of luck, isn't it?
Yeah, putting in the grind, and he definitely does it.
Yeah,
and he's making us do it too. So thank you once again. I can't say it enough. I appreciate you giving up your time for it. So 90 minutes watching it, an hour now discussing it, 2.5 hours of your life you won't get back. But at least this hour has been good fun.
Yeah, no, it has. I always enjoy coming on here. It's always a great laugh, and I really enjoyed it. So, but I know. When I come back later in this season, I think the choice of film will be somewhat. I can't remember what I'm next down for actually on your list, but I know well, just by sheer,
There's no way it could be any
it
worse.
can't be
than
any
this,
worse.
is
So
it?
I know the next one's going to be something a lot better. I know it because by the time I come back, he'll have sort of attained a certain level of stardom. So the material quality tends to go up with that. So I know it'll be a lot better. But
That's
no,
it.
I'm glad. I always like to see films I've never even heard of. So even though it wasn't great, I'm still glad I got to see it in a weird way.
Nice. And looking at the lists, your next appearance is Frailty.
Oh, I do love that. I love that
That's
film.
the corker. And then you're down
Yeah.
for Tropic Thunder. So, you're definitely moving up a couple of steps. And I think we're going to have a great time talking Tropic Thunder.
Jesus, now that is a film you couldn't make today for many reasons.
Listen, Ben Stiller has no apologies, so we're not going to offer any either when we come to discuss it.
Oh no, I won't apologise for it, but I know it's certainly something that wouldn't fly now for
sure,
for several reasons. But yeah, I look forward to that. And Frailty, I love that film.
Yeah, excellent.
I remember going to see it at cinema. The late great Bill Paxton star, and I think he directed it as well, didn't he? Bill Paxton.
That's right. Yeah.
He wasn't someone who directed a lot of films actually. I don't know why he didn't do a lot more. The remainder of his career based on that, but really good films. I'm very much looking forward to being able to watch it again. Actually, yeah, fantastic.
Brilliant, mate. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I've thoroughly enjoyed it as always.
And thank you everyone for listening and partaking in this journey with me through the reconnaissance. That was Scorpion Spring. Next up in a fortnight, I'm joined once more by Spider-Dan to discuss Eminem's appearance as Buddy Deeds and John Sayles' Lone Star for those that are watching along. Until next time, be excellent to each other and make sure you take the time to treat yourself too. I am Jack signing off. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers.
All right.
Cut.